We want to bring in the former Trump campaign manager who ignited all kinds of fury himself after seeming to dismiss struggles of these separated kids on live TV. Corey Lewandowski, it is good to have you on the show. Latest news on you that you'd been dropped by your Speakers Bureau. There's a lot of fallout from what you said. Let me remind people about the back and forth you had with the Democratic operative.
I read today about a 10-year-old girl with Down syndrome who was taken from her mother and put in a cage. I read about did you say want to a 10-year-old with Down syndrome being taken from her mother?
What I said is you can pick anything you want up, but the bottom line is very clear.
How dare you?
When you cross the border illegally.
All right, let's get through the noise. Corey, tell me that you did not mean to insult kids with Down syndrome or families that are coming across with kids like that.
Chris, of course I never meant to insult anybody with Down syndrome. And who I was talking to was Zach. And I understand what the perception is here and what the media wants to talk about. But what Zach was attempting to do was to use a child with Down syndrome to politicize an issue. But what he didn't tell you, what you need to understand was that person, that poor child was not taken from her parent because she came to this country illegally. That poor child was taken from her parent because her mother has been suspected of being a material witness in a child smuggling ring. And so we have to understand the difference. So let me be as clear as I can be. Chris, I would never degrade a child. I'm a father of 4. I understand that. But we have to get past using children as political tools and come up with real solutions.
All right, but let's get
look,
I hear what was going on with you and Zach, but there's some bigger realities here I need you to address. One involves you, one involves this administration. The first one is, it seemed like you were dismissing the plight of people who are coming across the border. And to the extent that that's how people took it, and they find that offensive, shouldn't you apologize for that if you didn't mean it?
Chris, I'm not here to offend anybody. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to defend the laws of this country. So if people are offended, then they shouldn't be. But people have to understand we're a nation of laws, and those laws are very clear. Those laws say, look, we are the country, the largest country in the world that grants asylums to individuals who are being persecuted. We grant over 1 million asylums a year. The second highest country is Germany. This is a country made up of immigrants. We are a country with a big heart. We are a country that wants to welcome people in. But you have to do it legally. Because if we don't have laws and we don't have rules, then we can't be successful. And people understand that. We're a great country. We're all immigrants, Chris, but we have a different way of coming here, and it has to be done legally, and that's what's important.
Right, but justice is fairness under law. So you've got the law, and then you've got how you choose to enforce it. And we know what happened here, Corey. The president wanted to make a statement of strength. We're going to prosecute everybody who crosses the border. But he didn't plan for his own success. Now, did he, Corey? He didn't set up the facilities. He didn't set up the processes. He just went with the politics and the message. And now we have a mixed message from the president. He put out an executive order saying, I get it. I get the crying kids are bad for me. I get that we shouldn't be like this. I'm going to fix it. But I want to play for you what he said and then what he said today.
The American people don't like the idea that we're separating families. We never really intended to do that.
If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you. And that child may be separated from you as required by law.
They have a 2,000-mile journey up Mexico. They walk through Mexico like it's walking through Central Park. It's ridiculous. They're drug traffickers. They're human traffickers. They're coyotes. I mean, we're getting some real beauties. Mexico is doing nothing for us except taking our money and sending us drugs.
All right, now I wanted to be very clear here, because sometimes people say, like you, Corey, well, that's the president, you know, he speaks, he's a little hyperbolic. I wanted to show you him and the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Both said completely contradictory things. Sessions and Trump said this was going to be now about making it okay, and they both contradicted themselves. What is the policy?
Well, let me read you exactly what the president said yesterday. He said it's about keeping families together, while at the same time being sure that we are a very powerful, very strong border. That's what it's about.
Yeah, but he said something else
no country
at a cabinet
in the world.
meeting today. Do we have the sound to play for Corey? All right. He said today at the cabinet meeting, this executive order, Corey, is limited, and families will still be separated. So what the hell is the policy? He said he signed the executive order to make it so that they wouldn't be separated. Then today he says they will still be separated.
Well, Chris, the problem is there is a federal ruling, and you know exists right now and would be appealed to the Ninth Circuit. And it looks like there's 10 states that are challenging the executive order right now. And what this president has said was he has done everything he can within the confines of the law which have been established to fix the problem. But this is Congress's problem. Remember, the Democrats had supermajorities in the U.S. Senate with 60 votes and the majority in the House in 2006 and 8, and they chose not to fix this problem.
Who signed the 2008 law that guides today? Who signed it?
Barack Obama.
Wrong. 2008, it was signed by President Bush, okay? I'm not big into the politics blame game. I think that there's problems with both sides in terms of why we've been stuck with a bad system that is inhumane on many levels for many years. However, let's call the facts as they fall. Bush signed it. The 97 Flores Agreement says you can't keep juveniles more than 20 days and you got to treat them in the right conditions. It was a humane settlement that the DOJ agreed to. This isn't about the law. It's about how you choose to enforce it. Bush struggled with this. Obama struggled with this. Trump was struggling with this, but he decided to do this proxy of strength in the form of harshness, and let's arrest them all. But he wasn't ready for it, and he created a crisis, Corey. That's the truth.
Yeah, but Chris, look at what has happened under the Trump administration. Because our economy is so successful, unaccompanied alien children, the pending cases are up to 78,000 right now. Pending cases, they were 3,000 in 2009. Approximately 90% of the removal orders ordered against unaccompanied children each year are for failures to appear is the problem. We have seen a 636% increase in unaccompanied aliens at ports of entry since 2017, April of 2017. This has gone out of control because what has happened in the past.
But isn't it out of control now, Corey? I'm saying I get the problem.
It is absolutely out of control.
But I'm not saying we agree on the problem. We agree on the problem.
So
here are the points that we need to finesse.
Let me
yeah, I know, but this wasn't the solution. That's my point. That's my point, Corey. What he's doing right now isn't solving it. It's making it worse.
But Chris, let me tell you what one of the solutions is, okay? Republicans and Democrats have to get together. The Senate can't get it done without 9 Democrat votes. And if they care about this issue, and I mean Republicans and Democrats, men and women who serve in Congress, they need to fix the problem.
Hey, the Republicans won't put up a bill that's just
the border wall.
Other than Ted Cruz, and even that has some add-ons, nobody on the Republican side, unless you throw a camera in their face and say, how do you feel about separating kids from their families? They're not putting out bills with any gusto to stop this current problem. They're using it as leverage to get other things in immigration done. So to me, that doesn't really speak to a basic sense of humanity about this.
Yeah, but this is the problem. Look, I don't disagree with you, but the problem has existed for a long time, and we've given Congress a pass for too long for not solving it.
Yeah, but the way to get them to act...
asked for money for a border wall.
I hear you, but I got to tell you, it's slipping the blame here. Congress needs to act. The system has problems, period. Okay, but that doesn't justify what Trump just did here. He did something that he had to know, if he has any common sense and any kind of counsel around him, was going to blow up the situation in a bad way. They had to know, Corey, and he did it anyway.
Chris, you would have rather have seen additional children being separated from their parents? What this president said was, we're going to stop that from happening.
No, he did the opposite.
He stopped that from happening,
He did the separations by increasing the arrests. He changed the policy from catch and release.
He signed an executive order yesterday.
I know, and today he said it won't work.
That says there's no more separation.
I know.
But look, that's up to,
we don't know if it's been followed through on. And he doesn't say how he's going to reunite the kids. What about that, Corey?
You can only solve one problem at a time. There's one problem at a time to solve. And
but he created the problem, Corey.
The separation.
That's what I'm saying. He came with a big bucket of gasoline.
Because
he threw it on the house. He tossed a match, and he said, let me grab a hose.
Look, Chris, we're a nation of laws, and the law was very clear, and there is an opportunity to enforce the laws that exist, and we need to change those laws.
But then you'll wind up like this.
But what this president said was, I'm going to follow the laws. So let's change the laws. Let's build a border wall. As soon as you build that wall, 90% of this problem stops because they're not crossing illegally.
We don't know.
Absolutely,
we don't know that any wall would make that kind of difference. And we glossed over one thing. Hold on. We glossed over something, and then I need to hit you on one more thing. But we glossed over something. Why are the numbers up? Because the economy is strong. What does that mean? The demand is up. What does that mean? We need jobs. In fact, we have so many jobs, we don't have enough workers for them in the United States. And what's the proof of that? the flow of supply in from south of the border. But let me ask you this. For all your roundups and all the demonizing of the people who come here for the work, how many employers have you put in jail? How many laws have you changed to even allow you to put them in jail? They're all civil penalties if you own the corporation and hire everybody illegally. But if you're one of those people who come for the job, you get treated like a dog and thrown in a cage. Is that right to you, Corey?
Chris, no, you know what's not right to me?
Corey.
Is people like Jamil Shaw and Brian Terry and Kate Steinle who are dead because illegal aliens came across the border illegally and killed their family members.
The numbers of illegal people in this country, as you call them, are lower than the overall crime rate. So if you're worried about people being killed, you got a lot of other places to look. No. But here, what about one employer too many?
You tell that.
What about
you tell that.
No,
you tell that to the families.
Make a compassion
Chris,
play.
you tell that to the family of Brian Terry, the police officer who was killed guarding this country against an illegal alien and was killed on the border.
Corey, you're going to look me in the eye and say I don't care about people who get killed by somebody, whether they're undocumented or not?
What I'm telling you, Chris, what I'm telling you, as a former police officer, I can tell you this. We should never have a police officer killed in the line of duty from someone who's in this country illegally.
We should never have an officer killed in the line of duty by anybody. What my point is
that's exactly right. And if you're not in this country illegally, you're not doing that.
That don't commit as much crime and that are feeding a need for jobs and for workers, but you don't go after the people who are really causing it, who are the people who are hiring them.
This president
You won't
said,
even answer the question. Why don't you go after the employers?
Here's what the president said. Chris, here's what this president said. You give me for the money for the wall, and the people that are in this country through no fault of their own that came as children, we will make them citizens. We will give them a path. He's offered that, and this Congress has said no. The Democrats and Chuck Schumer have said no.
That's not true. They gave him the wall for
true.
DACA, and he wanted chain migration, and he wanted to change the visa lottery. You know that's the truth.
They didn't give him the wall. They never gave the money for the wall.
They gave him $25 billion for the wall and DACA, and he said, I want the other things too. That's what happened.
There is no money for the wall.
History.
Chris,
That's what happened.
They gave him a down payment on the wall. Chris, they gave him a down payment for the wall. He's asking for the money for the wall, and the Democrats
got money for the wall. That's how it
works. They could have solved. He didn't get the. Chris, he didn't get $25 billion for the wall.
He got $25 billion over a certain number of years.
Chris, the Congress funds 1 year at a time is what they fund.
Facts
don't kid yourself.
So you won't talk about why you won't go after employers.
It is a fact.
You won't even mention that you don't go after employers. Why not? Why don't you throw them in jail?
Of course you have to go after employees. Why don't you look? Why don't we force e-verify? Absolutely. If employers are employing illegal aliens to do things illegally, they should be held accountable too.
Look what just happened in Ohio.
When those employees are held accountable,
Corey, look what just happened in Ohio.
When those employees are held accountable, guess what they will do? Employers who want to hire illegals need to be held accountable, and that means e-verify. Why aren't we using that?
They're not, though. They are using it.
So
look at what just happened in Ohio.
Let's go enforce the laws.
Hey, Corey.
Chris,
look what just happened in Ohio.
Which laws do you want to enforce?
Corey,
Chris, you tell me which laws you want to enforce.
I think that you enforce all of your laws, but it's about discretion of how you enforce them fairly.
No.
So
you only want to enforce the ones that are convenient. You don't want to enforce all the laws.
How is this convenient?
Because the law in the book says,
Corey.
Chris, you just said you want to enforce all the laws. The law in the book says that if you come to this country legally, you'll be separated. You don't want to enforce that law.
No, that's not what it says.
You want to enforce select laws.
That's not what it says.
Which laws can we enforce?
That's not what the law says. It does say that. And what I'm saying is you just
It absolutely says that.
It does not. It says if you come across the border, it is a crime. If you come over with children, you're not allowed to keep children in the conditions that you keep adults. That's on you to come up with the right procedures.
And you will be separated.
Instead,
it says you will be separated.
You arrested a big bunch of people. You had no plan for how to take care of them, no plan for what to do with the kids under the law, and no way to deal with it quickly. Now you're asking the courts for more time. That's the solution? Let me lock up kids for longer?
Why should the United States have different laws than every other country? Then let's go to a merit-based system, and I'm for that. Let's go and do exactly what Canada does.
Why don't you lock up some employers and then
exactly
people will have some faith that you're really fair-handed in this and you're not just demonizing people who come over looking for a job. And make them all MS-13 and killers.
I've already agreed with you, Chris. I've agreed with you. Let's implement e-verify.
But I'm saying they don't do that.
Accountable. But let's
they don't do that. They're putting kids in cages. But in Ohio, they catch a guy with 100 illegal laborers in his company. He gets a fine. That's fair.
Chris, we caught a guy in California who killed Kate Steinle, and he got off. We caught a guy in California who'd been deported 5 times. Came and killed a woman on a pier in California,
but he got
and
off
he was
because
released
of a trial
afterwards.
in which they didn't find him guilty of the charges.
Okay, go ask Kate's father who was there if he killed him.
Of course you feel for the victims. I'm just telling you that was the law. That was the process. They had a trial. That is what they found. You know, justice doesn't
But
always
the
make
process was he
everybody
shouldn't
happy.
have been here. He'd been deported
I
5
get it.
times.
He should have never been here. And that's why people are angry, because it should have never happened, because he never should have been here. But that doesn't mean that all people who come illegal are like him. Let me end on this.
I don't agree.
Oh, that's fine.
I don't disagree. Chris, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with that everyone is not like that animal who killed Kate Steinle. But the point is this. There is a way to come to this country legally. We accept more immigrants than any other country in the world. So if you want asylum, there is a process to do that. If you don't want to have your children separated,
except you're separating kids in those situations too now. The asylum people are getting treated like everybody else. The claim isn't getting processed quickly, and you guys didn't plan it out. I want to ask you this as a last question.
Chris,
will you admit that the way this was done was a mistake?
You mean implementing the law, following the law? Look, it is a mistake.
The way you did it here, will you own
children.
this was a mistake? The president had to admit it by signing this, this executive order, whatever it means or doesn't mean. Will you admit that this was a mistake? Can you own it?
I'll admit this very clearly. Nobody wants to see their children separated from their parents.
But then you shouldn't have started doing it.
It is a terrible thing for anybody. Right? But this is what happens when you have laws and you break the laws.
This is how you chose to enforce that law.
Don't rob a bank with your children.
Don't confuse people.
Chris, what happens, Chris, if you rob a bank with your children, guess what? You're separated from those children.
It's not a misdemeanor for crossing a border. You've shown intent to hurt people. You've shown an intent to deprive people of their property.
But
you didn't just cross a border.
Chris, what if you did this in a different country? If you went to any other country in the world and crossed their border illegally, would you expect to be able to stay with your children?
Germany has a much more open. You say their crime went up. The opposite is true. And their illegal entries are down 79%. Trump can't get his facts straight. He should get the feelings right.
Germany,
treat people with humanity.
Germany only accepts 198,300 people. They only accept 198,300 people in Germany, Chris. That's a fact. We take 1.2 million in asylum a year.
But that's about demand. Right? Anyway, look, that's a longer conversation. I appreciate you covering some of the bases. I appreciate you making it clear to the audience that you weren't intending to offend people with what you said on TV. That's important for people to hear. We could disagree, but we can't be without decency. So, Corey, thank you for coming on to clear that up and making the case.